Hello and welcome to the AV Forums podcast for the 10th of December 2014. And joining me on this edition are Assistant Editor Steve Withers.
What makes you think it's my first time?
News Editor Mark Hodgkinson.
Some men are coming to kill us. We're going to kill them first.
Games Editor Mark Botwright.
Well, everybody needs a hobby.
And Audio Reviewer Ed Selly.
Your interior decorating tips have always been appreciated, 007.
Welcome to the penultimate podcast of 2014. That means the second last one of the year. And there is more to come next week, 19th of December. We are having our Christmas work stew. And I've got my party popper ready. And my lemonade instead of my champagne. What about you guys? You all psyched up for our work stew next week?
What time are we actually doing it in? It depends on that. Really depends on how psyched up I can be.
I was thinking maybe the evening, just so we can all be really pissed.
That would
we'll
work.
all need poppers.
Again, as I've said before, I can't go to nursery absolutely reeking of booze. It's just frowned upon.
I think you can at this time of year. I think it's all right.
Well, no, but except I've had to drive there.
Oh, yeah.
They probably won't let me drive back.
That's all right as well.
Suspect, yeah.
It's Christmas. What are they going to do? So, Mr. Botwright, what festive delights have you got lined up for next week?
Eh?
And Steve?
For the podcast recording?
Yeah, come on. You must have something lined up. You must have an idea in the back of your head of what drink you're going to be drinking.
Oh, well, I think I might probably be cider, but since I know Botwright will be doing that.
Good man.
I might go for a cheeky bottle of maybe a Pinot Noir.
I've got a cheeky, 3 left of my 4-pack of K cider. Very good. 8.4%. It's black with red lettering on it. Very easy to point out in an off license.
Even if you've lost the power of speech,
Yeah.
you can just go, oh,
K. Yeah.
At least if your sight's going as well, at least you can differentiate between the colours, can't you? Hodge, you'll probably be having some Nuki Brew now, yeah?
That's not my style, really, Phil. No, but maybe a lager followed by some red wine. I'm away from the kitchen. I have to do these upstairs in the bedroom, so I have to be careful about what I spill, so to speak. But red wine. Red wine.
Worried about doing a tactical gander.
Yes. No, more spilling red wine all over the bed. That won't go down very well.
And Ed?
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to try and find more of that German Christmas beer that made me lose the feeling in my hands last year. It was good stuff. See, the thing is that's the same sort of ABV as K, but when you're drinking a German Christmas beer, you go, ooh, that's quite sophisticated. Not you're a raging alcoholic, you're drinking K. It's a double standard, but one that I take full advantage of.
And obviously, in your case, Phil, what?
I've just said
can of Tizer.
I've just said I'm having lemonade instead of champagne. If you listened at the start,
I heard you say that, but I didn't know if that was what you actually meant, because that seems a bit rubbish. And Iron Brew seems more appropriate.
Yeah. Why is it that for somebody that doesn't drink alcohol, I'm the one that's always made to feel bad and left?
It's just a boring soft drink, though.
You know, wine gums.
Yeah.
That'd be the best time to do the Theodore Rex commentary, though. Stream of consciousness.
Yes, well, we'll come back to it later on, but there is a competition. If you want to have the best Christmas present you've ever had, you could watch it on YouTube, because somebody did post the link. You can win the DVD, which is our competition, so go and check out the competitions page. Now, talking about movies, big anticipated movies, Bond is back, number 24. And it's going to be called Spectre. There used to be somebody on the forums called Spectre.
Yeah. What happened to him, eh? Has he gone off to become a supervillain?
Anyway, interesting cast.
Yeah, I know. It looks quite good. But don't we know everything about the cast thanks to this Sony leak? Like how much they're paid, what their inside leg measurement is, their feelings towards Adam Sandler. It's kind of taken some of the edge off this, hasn't it?
Was it North Korea?
No, well, they're saying it isn't, but they're saying it was a righteous thing to do. I think. I don't know. It's all very confusing. But yeah, it's not a good. Apparently, the article I was reading was saying that there was going to be several thousand salary-related lawsuits, because obviously it shows a massive discrepancy between men and women doing the same roles, which probably exists in almost all companies. Yeah, but they haven't had their financial records leaked to to the world at large. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem. I'm sure it will be perfectly proficient, but we are beginning to sort of have a bit of a problem in so much as obviously these films need to do very well in countries that used to be the bad guys. So this sort of de-regionalising and going back to supervillains, I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, the supervillains are responsible for some of the more sort of iconic Bond moments, but they were at their best when they were working in the pay of a superpower, not independently. That's just my thoughts on that.
Well, it looks like they announced. Well, I didn't actually announce who Christoph Waltz is playing, but I think it might be Blofeld. That would be quite cool if it was. But they have announced that the guy who played Mr. White's coming back. So I mean, maybe they're going to morph Solace, or what they're called. No, Quantum. What are they called? Quantum, yeah. Into Spectra. I don't know, I quite like it. I want a supervillain, with some ridiculous world-dominating plans and stroking a white cat, ideally.
I would like to see a return of the submersible Aqua Battle Palace from The Spy Who Loved Me, because that is the coolest Bond villain layer of the lot. I know the hollowed out volcano is iconic. Drax's space station's got its advantages, but the Stromberg battle thing, that's just totally tits.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
Well, I mean, if you were to look at the world as it is at the moment, who would be the bad guys? It used to be the Russians. So you're not going to point the finger at the Chinese because
Well, you want lots of people to go and see the film in China, so
exactly.
You're the bad guy.
So the bad guy nowadays has to be somebody like Google.
Well, no, they tried that with Tomorrow Never Dies, didn't they?
Yeah, or there wasn't the bad guy
Rupert Murdoch. Yeah.
No, you want a villain that's non-political, so you're not going to offend anyone because you want to maximise your budget. You want a title that's really easy to sell worldwide, which Spectre is, because it's not complicated. It's not like Her Majesty's Secret Service, which might not actually translate well into Chinese. You want to get as much product placement as you possibly can into the film and make a ton of money. That's what they're about. So I guess it ticks all the boxes. They've got a pretty interesting cast. I'm glad to see Monica Bellucci getting a role. I mean, she may be 50, but she's still fit as a butcher's dog. So I'll be more than happy to see her as a Bond girl or Bond lady.
Bond lady.
Bond lady.
Bond person. You're a Bond
person.
Well, Casino Royale saw Sony recordable Blu-ray way before it ever came out, Steve. So maybe we'll get a sneak peek at some 4K Blu-rays from Sony in this one, product placement wise.
Yeah, but we won't see the film on 4K Blu-ray anytime soon, though.
It's funny what you say about just thinking about. I've just been reminded going on about audience is going to you've got to do it so the audience is rooting for the right person. They're not perceived as a bad guy. Years and years ago, I went to see Black Hawk Down in the Mile End Genesis. And it became pretty clear about 25 minutes in that the vast majority of the people watching the film in the Mile End Genesis were rooting very firmly for the Somalians, which put a very interesting dynamic on the film as a whole. It was quite exciting in a slightly nervous way.
Picking up on something you wrote about this, do you think Bond will kind of get the same level of kind of hype for it? Because it did seem to tie into that kind of wave of kind of patriotism around the time of the Olympics, the last one. I just wonder whether it might just seem strangely kind of outdated and weirdly nationalistic, because we only tend to do kind of little displays of flag waving once every kind of 4 years, maybe.
I think the film will be less British, and I mean, Skyfall, a lot of it took place in the UK, didn't it? London and Scotland, but yeah, I mean, it tapped into us, that kind of that year with the Diamond Jubilee and the Olympics. I think there was a feeling of goodwill. I mean, it probably explains a lot of its success in the UK. I don't know whether it really explains its success globally, because it made $1 billion worldwide, so it did incredibly well. I think if they got the next film out 2 years later, so there was now, it may have ridden on the back of that for popularity a bit better. But another year waiting around for Sam Mendes to become available, you're kind of thinking, by the end of next year, will that momentum have been lost? We'll see.
I don't know. Bond has survived quite long hiatuses before, and I don't think it's provided that the basic premise is up to snuff. You do a couple of things. You acknowledge. I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought that Casino Royale was quite well done in so much as it sort of grounded the series again. But on that, obviously, I just sent a spoof link. But on the same website, it's going on. It's jokingly talking about Bond as the world's worst spy. Rocking up in an Aston Martin that no one has ever seen before.
Yeah, a one-off made for him.
Yeah.
Aston
So
Martin.
ultimately, there is a degree you can't lose the preposterousness of it. I think that's very, very important.
Which I think Mike Myers picked up on brilliantly with the whole spy genre thing.
Austin Powers.
When he did Austin Powers, I mean, that was just, it wasn't too far removed from the actual way that Bond films are portray spying and so on.
Yeah. I mean, but the moment in the original Austin Powers where he's 3-point turning that golf cart in the corridor still just reduces me to a drooling idiot. It's still one of the single best sight gags just going. It's fantastic.
I've got to say, I'm not that excited for this. I don't know why. I think it's just
we're all Star Wars out, Phil.
Yeah,
there's no lightsabers.
Well, I was just going to say,
I
think we're being spoilt next year. We got Star Wars coming, we got Bond, we got the Terminator coming back, we got Jurassic World coming. Mad Max. Actually, if you are a cinema and home cinema fan, next year is a big year in terms of popular franchises.
Yeah, the Avengers: Age of Ultron, that's coming out in May.
No, not interested in that whatsoever.
Yeah, no, but it wasn't. You might not be, but it was the second most successful film of all time in America, or third, after 2 Cameron films. So clearly, it's going to be a huge money earner for Marvel/Disney.
Yeah, but there's a difference between money earner and actually being a good film.
I'm looking forward to it. I think Joss Whedon's a very talented filmmaker.
We're talking about good films, and we included the new Terminator in that list.
Is that a nice segue that we just got?
Yeah,
there?
go on.
I think it is.
Come on then. Why is it going to be a pile of shite?
Well, the trailer, Genesis. Oh God! When you start doing silly names, you're done for. It's up there with A Good Day to Die Hard.
Yeah, well, when you spell it funny as well, as if we haven't got enough problems with teenagers not being able to spell.
I'm sorry, it just looks a little bit like it's going to be kind of Terminator: The Twilight Years, and Arnie coming back, where it just looks like it's the kind of film where you just think someone's got a very large unpaid tax bill or something. They've just said, "Sod it, I'll just do it."
Paternity
it's 2 days.
Yeah,
it's 2 days. 2 days work or something. And I was kind of thinking, well, no, it might not be bad. And then the bus flipped. And I'm sorry, that was it was like a finale to Casualty or something.
God,
well, even the Fast and the Furious wouldn't try and do something like that, would they? Wouldn't defy gravity in such a ridiculous way.
But I mean, the thing is, you can't knock it for the fact that it actually exists, because we've kind of this whole time paradox surrounding the Terminator. Technically, it should have just ended with the first film, but we've kind of just done away with any kind of sense of logic or anything like that, and now it's kind of alternate timelines.
You're not supposed to take it that seriously, though, Mark, are you? Because you would have thought these are machines with computer brains. You would have thought they would have sent at least 4 or 5 Terminators back to 4 or 5 different time points to at least kill one of them.
But no, that's the point. It didn't have enough power to send back that many. It could only send back one to try and kill Sarah Connor. That was the point. It ends there, but in fact, the whole point is that it's cyclical anyway, because if kind of Kyle Reese is in fact John Connor's dad, then it's kind of already predestined to have happened. So therefore, what's the point going through with emotions anyway? It's comic book fare. It's kind of, you're not supposed to take anything out of it and assume there is going to be any actual end to it, but I wish there was an end to it.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it that got the sports almanac again?
That was son of a bitch stole my idea.
But, let's face it, I've got to be honest, of the Terminator films, the first is a stone-cold classic. The second is a sort of fondness because it was just monstrously overblown and it came out at a sort of correct point in a lot of our sort of formative years, and it was used as an AV disc for God knows how long. But actually, on balance, I don't think it's a desperately good film, and it's just tailed off further and further from there.
The effects look no better, do they, than Terminator 2?
Well, it should have ended at T2. I mean, that should have been the end of it, and just leave it at that.
Shocking.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The Sarah Connor Chronicles TV thing at times was quite good. That was quite good, but otherwise, it's one great film has managed to prop up a franchise of dubious value after that point.
I don't know if anybody else has caught up with it, but BBC Two are doing their sci-fi season at the moment,
Yeah, it's really good.
Tomorrow's Worlds is it's been running for the last 3 weeks. I think there's one more episode to come up next Saturday, but you can catch them all on iPlayer. Well worth a watch. And they did the whole cyborg, robots turning bad, robots turning good episode this week, and yeah. Looking through it, it's one of these things that I would never have thought of taking it back to Frankenstein, which is obviously the original, creation gone wrong, and it's quite. I don't know if you saw it, Steve. I'm assuming that.
Yeah, I watched it on Saturday night.
So it was really interesting the way he took us through the timeline of movies and where we've used this premise, and some places I had never even thought of.
No, it was. It's a fascinating series, and the way he started with 1818, I think it was when Frankenstein was written, and how that was probably one of the first science fiction novels in the modern context, at least. And then taking it through to things like Metropolis and Star Wars, Terminator, Blade Runner. It was a really, and then taking it all back full circle back to Frankenstein again was brilliant. It was a really good show, and yeah, it's been a very if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out, because it's been really thought provoking. It's covered things like space travel, aliens, and I think next week is time travel. So it covers all the main tropes of science fiction, and the guy presenting it really knows his stuff, and it's an excellent series.
Cool.
RoboCop got to mention it too. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to have to fit it in around MasterChef, which is a challenge. But
I'm sure you can manage that, and like I say, it's on iPlayer, so you can watch it at your convenience. I think all the episodes are on there as well. So with this new 30-day thing. With iPlayer, so you can get in there and watch it. It's well worth it. Let's move things on then. Hardware wise, an LED TV as good as a plasma, big words which were said last year at CES, Steve, and which basically got forgotten about during the year, because the TV that was supposed to be the next big thing kind of been a bit of a damp squib.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw that demo at CES beginning of the year, they had a darkened room with a pre-production prototype of the AX902, sandwiched between a ZT65 and I think that whatever the TV was, WT600, I think it was last year, wasn't it? And I mean, it didn't look as good as the ZT65, but it looked pretty good, and obviously it had a full array backlight, and I'm pretty sure that TV had a VA panel, because that looked pretty good. This has got an IPS panel, so when you turn off that off the local dimming, the backs are pretty ropey. I mean, even with the local dimming on, it's still not as good as a plasma, and certainly nowhere near as good as an OLED. Backlight uniformity is very good. The performance in general, the video processing, the calibration controls, all excellent. Picture quality is great. I mean, it squeezes every last detail out of a high def signal, scaling it to the 4K panel. It's got really accurate colors. Motion handling looks pretty good, for an LCD television. And the backlight works well. The local dimming rather works well. The backlight's very uniform. But I wouldn't say that I thought it was any better in terms of black levels than the Samsung TVs that use a VA panel. Obviously, you've got a much wider viewing angle, which might be a nice thing to have. But we're talking about 55-inch 4K LCD television, and it's £3,500. Well, you could almost buy two of the. I mean, these are full HD TVs, but you could buy two of the LG OLEDs for nearly that price. So I think it's toppy on the price front, frankly. Up again in a very, very competitive market space right now in terms of high-end 4K TVs. And I had a few other problems with it, which really annoyed me. They've done an upgrade on the remote app, so you can now control and calibrate all different inputs. So like Pro 1 and Pro 2, you can control them from the remote app, which is great because it means you haven't got any menus in the way when you're taking measurements, which is really, really handy for calibration purposes. But I couldn't get the damn thing to find my router at all. No matter how hard I tried, it just wouldn't connect.
Well, you don't want it to, actually, to be honest, Steve, because once you do it using touch controls to affect like the white balance and stuff, it's awful. So you saved yourself some pain there, to be honest.
I had to run a cable in the end because I couldn't get to connect it into any other way. And also it comes, well, I don't know if it's the default, but certainly when it arrived for me, it had the feature in where if you move around in front of the TV, it turns itself on automatically, and the bloody camera's always up. And the only way I could get rid of that camera was to find this feature and then turn it off. So that was a bit annoying too, actually. I think sometimes manufacturers take these helpful, features too far and they become frustrating and slightly annoying. Yeah, it's a solid TV. You know, I don't think it's worth £3,500 though. And if you go for the 65-inch, that's $5,000. I mean, you're talking almost the same price as you're going to be paying, hopefully soon, for a 65-inch 4K OLED from LG. So, you know, really.
They won't stay at those prices very long, will they? It's typical Panasonic. They'll bring
Yeah,
something
they'll
out
drop
really,
like a stone.
really highly price it, and then it'll drop like a stone within 2-3 months.
But yeah, compared to the claims that were being made for this TV beforehand, it was a bit of a disappointment.
I think we all saw that coming, to be honest, didn't we?
Well, as soon as you know it's an IPS panel, you just know it's not going to deliver the black levels you're looking for.
I guess what people are going to say here, Steve, in Panasonic's defence, is it's the first year that they've gone with full range without plasma TV. They are trying to push LED LCD technology along and trying to make some improvements there. I mean, there is the old argument, well, you know, if LCD was so good, why is everybody trying to fix the issues that it has? But, you know, we've got to live with what technology there is at the minute. So in Panasonic's defence, you have got that side of things where they are genuinely trying to push things along a bit and trying to improve LCD TVs. But at the same time, when you look at the likes of what you had in for review just last week, and which is taking the forums by storm at the minute with 2 or 3 threads that are into the hundreds of comments long, you got to wonder what can Panasonic do other than release an OLED TV? And they're not going to do that because they've already said to us it's too big of a financial payout right at the start. It's too much of an investment.
We should buy some panels off LG.
They can't afford to do the R&D themselves. They'll have to buy them from LG if they want to do that. I mean, this panel isn't theirs. They don't make the panel in this television. However, the areas where they do add their own, you know, value, so processing, the calibration controls, the color accuracy, you know, in terms of CIE tracking chart, it tracks really well. Those elements they've done extremely well. No question about it. The processing is superb on this TV. The color accuracy and the calibration controls are absolutely referenced. It's a lovely looking picture. I just find it difficult to justify the price. I mean, I know a lot of the price comes down to the fact it's got a full array backlight because that's going to add cost to it. And certainly from that perspective, you've got a very even backlight, which is really nice to see on an LCD TV. So there's lots of positives here. I'm not trying to like completely down the TV. I'm just saying that it's very expensive for what you're getting. And, you know, there's other stuff coming out. I think there's comparable stuff that's just as good and cheaper. And there's also some really interesting things coming down the line. Hopefully we'll find out more in a few weeks' time, in fact, at CES, which is only like 3 weeks away now.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. So we'll hopefully find out some more then. I think sometimes Panasonic have a tendency to release expensive products. I mean, you're right, Mark. I'm sure the price will fall rapidly. So yeah, I mean, it's still a recommended, but it's not the plasma killing LCD that they were rather rashly promising a year ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about high priced Panasonic stuff. I mean, I've just reviewed the BDT 700 Blu-ray player. They are top end flagship Blu-ray player. Brilliant build quality, looks gorgeous, works extremely well, does everything it says on the tin, but it's £550. If it was £250, I'd have bought it in a heartbeat. £550 doesn't do SACD, doesn't do DVD audio. Whether I'd want that functionality or not is that's another argument for another day. But the fact that I can buy an Oppo and it does all that, and it's multi-region if I want to pay for the multi-region, it's just over expensive for what it is.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's always a difficult thing, isn't it? Because it's nice to have a well-made, flash-looking Blu-ray player, decent build quality. But at the end of the day, a £500 player, a £100 player, if they're not doing anything they shouldn't be doing,
exactly,
over HDMI, it's the same.
Exactly. So what you are paying for is the build quality.
Yeah.
In this case, it had analog audio stages, 4 DACs, little bits and pieces like a nice remote control, nice finish to the brushed aluminium and all the rest. So yeah, it looks really, really nice, but not £550 worth. It just seemed to be really overpriced for what it is.
And THX certification, what does that entail?
Well, what does that mean nowadays? Because they won't tell us what the tests are. So.
Is there a THX mode on it?
No, but I'm assuming there that as long as it shows out of the box, it shows what's on the disc and it doesn't add anything, then THX will put their stamp of approval on it. So
yeah.
You wouldn't have a THX picture mode on a player as long as it's outputting what it should be outputting.
Yeah, but they do have picture modes, so you'd thought any excuse to get that splashed branded on it. You know what they're like.
Well, you see, I'd be saying, why have you got picture modes?
Well, yeah, it's true. They shouldn't have them.
Take the picture modes out. Leave some controls in there if the display the Blu-ray player is going into hasn't got very good controls, or it needs a way around of using controls. Then have that in there. Like some AVRs have picture controls in them, but the whole branding and stuff. I mean, if they're not going to tell you what the tests are that it's passing, what is THX worth anymore? The THX seems to have, I don't know about you, Steve, but lately it just seems to have nosedived in terms of what they're actually trying to achieve, and playing into the hands of those cynical people out there who say, well, you're just paying for a license and a badge, and it's playing into their hands now.
This is just my opinion, but I think to a certain extent THX have lost their way over the last few years. They're no longer part of Lucasfilms. They've lost that kind of the cachet that came with being George Lucas connected, and all the things that they were doing with cinema, the cinema program back in the early to mid 80s. When in the early days of AV, so in the sort of early 90s, that you had the THX certification on receivers, THX speakers. There was a THX mode that gave you took the mono rears and gave you a sort of a sense of stereo rears. All that stuff's been superseded now, hasn't it? I mean, basically, you've got things like Dolby True HD and DTS Master Audio. You just don't need any of that kind of stuff anymore. You're getting lossless audio. You're getting 7.1 discrete channels, and I think over the last few years, you kind of question what exactly THX is for anymore. And it seems to me that fewer and fewer manufacturers are now using THX. I mean, there's a THX mode on the AX902, for example. You've got THX Cinema and THX Bright Room and THX 3D, and it's THX 4K certified. But that's one of the first TVs I've seen in quite some time now with the THX mode on it.
Yeah.
So you've got to wonder really. And I understand that they need to make money, therefore they need to sell licenses. So they've been going down the quality chain, if you like, and doing more and more things like THX certified cars, stereos, and THX certified laptop speakers or speakers for your PC.
Which is all good if they're telling you what the standard is that they're aiming for.
Yeah, but they've got very secretive, haven't they?
Bare minimums. This is what it should be able to do, and it should be performing above this level, and blah blah blah. So that if you're buying a THX certified product, it at least gets to a minimum level of performance, which is how they used to sell the certification to people, and you knew that if you were buying a THX certified product, it hit certain performance criteria. Nowadays, it just and people like Dolby and DTS, they're doing a lot of stuff now in the sound field. Dolby in particular are really muscling in terms of cinemas, not just the audio side, but they do digital cinema packages for digital projectors. They're branding their own line of cinemas now to give a more premium experience. And all that was the kind of thing that THX was championing 20 years ago. Like I say, I think they've lost their way a bit, and they've become less and less relevant.
I think they've lost brand awareness, but I think that's probably the major thing, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, you used to go to the cinema, and if it was a half-decent cinema, it had a THX logo at the start of the film. You used to buy DVDs, and if they were THX certified, the logos were before the movie started on DVDs, and not so much Blu-rays. And I think the last THX certified Blu-ray I had, the trailer was after the end credits at the end of the movie. So if it's hidden away there, then people are not seeing it. You're not seeing the logo on DVDs and stuff now. You very rarely see it on any products as well. So you're right enough, Mark. In terms of brand awareness, they've definitely on this side of the pond, they've lost touch. Totally.
Yeah, so they're struggling to make themselves relevant, but what have they got? We see Dolby and pushing all this audio technology, not really anything THX to do now of any interest.
And it is a shame because they were one of the standards bodies which did have a public profile that was known by certainly some outside the enthusiast circle. They were known when they were part of Lucasfilm and so on, and it's sad that it's fallen by the wayside and so on, because we're always up for standards companies, and we always want to push best practice for people so they get the best out of their kit. Go on, Ed.
It always goes back to that Simpsons episode where they're in the cinema. It does a spoof on the THX trailer where it's like smashing people's teeth and
well, that is a THX trailer. It was made by them, and it featured in an episode, and they used to feature that before the movies in THX certified cinemas. And it, like you say, Simpsons. You can't get any bigger and more popular animated series than that, and getting yourself featured on there. But just as soon as it went into different hands, I think it's just lost focus completely. Anyway, let's move on, and let's talk about some audio. Ed, wired or wireless streaming music? What's the best way to stream at the minute? You've looked at most of the services, and you've even reviewed a few.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that you've got lots and lots of options, and often in quite actually products that you don't anticipate are extremely capable UPnP streamers if the fancy takes you. The Yamaha 3040 I reviewed has a really well sorted UPnP section in it. I don't know if the same was the case with the 2040, Steve. But there's
sorry, Ed.
Any number of products where you don't necessarily need to be investing in additional equipment to have access to often very well sorted UPnP streaming. Now, if you'd asked me this question this time last year, I'd have still possibly made an argument for trying to get cabling in situ, or at the very least possibly using Ethernet over mains. I mean, there are pros and cons to that. I am now about a year in to exclusively using wireless. I've got a Netgear R9000, which looks like it's made out of pieces of stealth bomber sort of leftovers, which obviously is a big deal when choosing any of your electrical ancillaries. But I have been using that for my home network for about a year now, and I can honestly say there is not a single piece of streaming that I have attempted in the last year where where I've had any dropouts, any messing about, any foolishness. So, provided that you do not expect the sort of routers given away in Christmas crackers, or on a sort of £2 a month broadband deal to sort of stand up to that level of abuse, I'm going to stick my neck out here. I don't think you need to worry about getting dedicated cabling in. And then, having done that, if the actual broadband line going in to the house is up to it, I don't know. I'm still using Tidal at the moment. In the interest of full disclosure, the journalistic review account has a bit of time left to run on it. I'm still umming and ahhing over whether I will actually start spending my own money in lieu of Spotify on it. It's pretty damn good, and if you do still buy music, I know that that's like curiously sort of old-fashioned for large portions of our readership. I think it is possibly worth the effort, but I'm still buying media, both vinyl and downloads, because there are certain items which just aren't on Tidal, or they are available in higher quality versions. I'm more interested, given actually he suggested it for the itinerary. How have you been getting on with it, Steve? I mean, when I can remember about 2 years ago when you did the Name DAC review, you had essentially we basically set you up from that point onwards with sort of some bits and bobs of lossless and high res. I mean, when are you actually making use of this stuff outside of a review process now?
Yeah, basically, I pretty much stream everything now. I'm always streaming audio. I've got an Apple TV in the lounge, so I basically use that to stream stuff from my iTunes account into the lounge, which is connected to a stereo in the lounge, a hi-fi in the lounge. When I was testing the Yamaha and also to the Marantz as well, both were extremely easy to set up. Built-in Wi-Fi, built-in aerials, very easy to set up.
Where was the Yamaha? Was that in the library?
No, that was in the home cinema.
All right. And which one was in the library?
In the library.
It's Colonel Mustard.
Or the smoking room?
No, he's in the conservatory with the dagger.
Oh, the study. Oh, sorry.
I mean, it's very convenient, and I'm streaming Apple lossless most of the time. Although I do have some higher resolution stuff as well. Good to see you, Ben. It's great. I mean, what is interesting though. One of the reasons why I think I raised it as a topic for today is because you can alternatively, of course, use a wired connection. Now, I'm not suggesting necessarily that you want to go put Cat5 around your house, because that does require a lot of drilling and banging and making holes. But the simple audio streamer that I reviewed just in the last couple of days, that uses power lines. In other words, it uses your home's electrical system to send the signal around the house and create a network. And that's a very robust and effective way. Assuming your electricity cable, assuming your loop around your house is in good condition and everything, it does actually work very effectively. So that is an alternative to a wireless or Cat5 wired connection, and quite a clever idea that I don't think I've seen anybody else doing recently. So worth considering.
I mean, Ethernet over mains. A number of my colleagues at the extremist 2-channel end of things have a serious downer on Ethernet over mains and power line equipment.
Also, lots of
but they're the same people that colour in their CDs with green felt pens, aren't they?
And keep them in the freezer. Look, you've got to keep if you don't only do half of the process, it's just not going to work. By which I mean you have really cold hands and slightly damp CDs. But in fairness, whereas there are certain mocking aspects about putting a green pen on a CD, it's funny. For Cough, a different publication, I've got a valve amplifier here on test at the moment. Now that is currently tucked up behind a main. It's connected directly to a mains conditioner. If you plug it into my household mains on the other side of the conditioner, it's not a huge amount, but there is more noise at idle with it. Now, you could say, well, that's just substandard and shite and so on and so forth, but there are limitations to what you can do to keep valve amp power supplies quiet. So if you are using some of the more esoteric bits and bobs available to you in this industry, Ethernet over mains might be a bit of a nasty. It can actually introduce a fair amount of noise. And I would say that, as I say, the Netgear router that I've got, it wasn't massively expensive. I think I paid £140. And it's, as I say, it's absolutely bomb-proof. And as well as having benefits for audio, it means that it's well and truly able to handle files being shunted around the network at the same time and things like that. And it has also, when compared to a wired solution, meant that I didn't have to exercise any of my non-existent DIY skills. So I would still say that if you're not dealing with something like the Simple Audio Player, which is dedicated to using Ethernet over mains, I'd honestly just up-spec your router and you'd be amazed at how good wireless actually can be.
Okay, so wired or wireless, Ed, which way are you going to go?
I'm wireless.
And Steve?
I'm also wireless.
Okay, so nobody's wired.
Well, it depends what you're talking about.
As I say, I had to run there's a review product coming out. I submitted it late, but nonetheless submitted it.
It's not like you.
I had to rig a wired connection up for that because it didn't have wireless on board, and it was like going back a couple of years. It
Jesus,
was tremendously frustrating.
What kind of product comes out nowadays that doesn't have wireless in it? I mean,
well,
everything
the
has
review's
wireless
upcoming. Wait and see. I wouldn't want to spoil the surprise.
Okay then, just to wrap up quickly on hardware, Denon and Marantz have released their Aura 3D upgrade, Steve.
Yeah, they promised it a couple of months ago, and they've come through on that promise and delivered a firmware update that's available now for existing owners. It's for the Denon X5200 and the X4100, and for the Marantz SR700, which we've already reviewed. Excellent receiver, and their AV7702 Preamp Pro. The upgrade will cost you €149. I should point that out. It's not free. It will cost you €149, and you can pay via PayPal, and it will charge your account in your home currency, in our case sterling. But yeah, it's interesting. They're the first sort of mainstream mass market manufacturer to introduce Aura 3D onto their receivers. Up to now, it's all been high-end stuff like Datasat, and certainly on the X5200 and the SR700, it's a full 10.1 Aura setup. So the height speakers and then the voice of God. With the X4100, it is just a 9.1 setup. So just the height speakers and no voice of God. But yeah, I mean I think it's interesting. I think at least that means now that if you're interested, you can have a crack at both Atmos and Aura if you want. Obviously, that's dependent on there being any content for either of those formats. There's not much for Atmos. I
was just going to say, does this Aura upgrade, does that include the upmixer?
Yes, it does. It does. So actually, I think that'd be quite interesting.
So it does get around the slightly significant otherwise point that there's not a busting lot to listen to.
No, but it will
introduce
the Auralizer feature that Phil and I had demoed to us when we were at their studios back in.
That's the thing that did the amazing mono trick.
Oh yeah.
So in fact, that bit would be very interesting to test.
Right. Okay, that's more interesting because I was
mono to surround or mono to stereo.
And I've got to say, in the battles of the demo discs. So Atmos versus Auro 3D demo discs. Auro 3D demo disc wins hands down in terms of content.
Got some film clips
because it's actually some film clips. In fact, it's got quite a few film clips. So you're thinking, well, what happened to Dolby's demo disc here? With it, pushing it through quickly and just didn't have time?
Well, no, it's bizarre because Dolby had a demo disc that they were using at CEDIA in September, which included clips of things like Oblivion and various other Atmos films. Star Trek, I think, was on there and sort of stuff. But when the disc came out for sort of general use by reviewers and that sort of stuff, and for release with distributors and dealers and that kind of thing, gone. Just all Dolby stuff, basically. I'm assuming it was a rights issue of some kind, but you'd think, if you're trying to push a format, get some clips on there and things. But anyway.
Yeah.
Have you got your disc, by the way? Your Auro disc then?
Yeah, well, that's why I raised it.
And you got yours, Ed, yeah?
Up, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. Right.
Just need some kit to play on it now and some extra speakers, and we'll be away. Right,
yeah, shitload of speakers.
I think that wraps it up for hardware this week, so we're going to go quickly to an ident, and we're back in a sec with some games news. So, going on to games news, and something interesting happened over the weekend in Vegas. Mark.
Yes, yep. Well, you had the Video Game Awards, and then straight afterwards you had the PlayStation Experience event, which was to kind of celebrate 20 years of the PlayStation brand consoles. And yeah, it was kind of a little bit of an avalanche of teaser trailers and announcements and the like. There was some big news. Unfortunately, like with most things, it got leaked ahead of time. I think the big one that Sony were obviously hoping to keep up their sleeves was Street Fighter V will be exclusive to PlayStation 4 and PC, so a console exclusive for them. Lots of trailers, lots of gameplay shown for Uncharted 4, The Order 1886. Final Fantasy VII, everyone assumed it might be a remake of the classic Square Enix roleplay game. Unfortunately, it looks like it's a PC port. Beyond that, new God of War, we know is in the works, but obviously that was always assumed. Big news for me though was Yakuza 5 will be getting a Western release, so keeping the PlayStation 3 alive for a little bit longer. So I can't trade that in just yet. But I think out of everything, there were some really interesting kind of teaser trailers, things like Adrift, the Games Awards, which looks a bit like Gravity, first-person perspective, zero-G floating amongst the wreckage of a ship and the like. That'll be on PS4, Xbox One as well. But I can't really kind of look at anything else without seeing Legend of Zelda on the Wii U. It looks like a huge world. We finally got to see some gameplay of it. Setting sun, scaling a giant mountain. It really does look like kind of this expansive game that people have been wanting. People always kind of trot out the rather kind of glib line, which is, what if something like Zelda was crossed with, the likes of Skyrim or something? But, it just kind of speaks of how much people just want that Zelda world, but more of it. It showed using the kind of motion sensor in the gamepad to look around, and you could set beacons on this massive map, and using the sailcloth to jump down from a giant mountain and kind of shoot arrows from horseback. And just generally, it looked fantastic. And also, they announced that it will be out next year, and Star Fox will arrive before it. So it looks like finally the Wii U is really starting to pick up some steam.
Yay.
And how long have you owned one prior to it actually doing this?
I've owned one since launch, and I'll be honest, if I work out how many games I've had for it, I think I've had my value in it. I really do. Kind of first-party titles for Nintendo consoles. If you're buying a Nintendo console and you're buying it for anything other than first-party, then you're always going to be in for a disappointment. But there again, at the Game Awards, Best Racer. What was that? Best Sports and Racer Game?
If it was
FIFA.
Mario Kart, I'd be most.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's not a racing game. It's an exercising bloody Controller Dismemberment. It's a hateful, hateful, hateful game and has been from the very first iteration. It's a racing game for people that don't like racing.
Sore loser.
Shit.
And on that note, that's games news.
You're getting the hang of this now. Okay, so moving on to movie news and what's at the cinema. Mark.
Yeah, I'm normally asleep by now. I don't know. It's a strange role for me to be doing. But yes, the family and I went to our local cinema, and carrying on from our theme of the other week, it was £14 for the four of us, and there was no adverts. I think that was just because trying to squeeze as many showings into a day to cash in on the popularity, and it was rammed in there. So must have been 350 people, and they were doing 3 showings. So it's obviously going down a storm in Macclesfield. It's a movie based kind of loosely on the Michael Bond books of the 1950s, which were, I think, a slight commentary on immigration at the time and how we should, how the British should be tolerant and accepting of immigrants. But the movie doesn't really touch on any of that. It's far more light-hearted. It's, if you don't know the story, I can't believe many people wouldn't, but it's. It centres around little Paddington, who's an orphan bear who has to sent to England when his great Aunt Lucy, or his Aunt Lucy rather, can no longer look after him because she's poorly. The London connection comes from an explorer who visited there. I'm not sure what time frame, but he visited there and found these rare Peruvian bears who could learn to talk and were very civilised and nice and all the rest of it. So he turns at a Paddington station. He hitches a ride on a boat over there, and he gets found by the Brown family, who, well, the mother of who and the son who were very accepting of him, and it's a tale that sort of the story arc of the villain in it, who's Nicole Kidman. It's very much like 101 Dalmatians or Madagascar 3, and she's trying to catch Paddington and get him stuffed for the Natural History Museum. There's nothing really particularly new in that. I think Nicole Kidman's slightly disappointing, but the movie's fun. There's loads of good laughs. Yeah.
Does that mean the Natural History Museum is essentially the villain of the piece?
Yes, it does, because she works for it. She was the granddaughter of the explorer. So, yeah, but she's working unbeknownst. This is like secret stuff.
You know, for a kids' film, you're making this sound really, 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 really complicated.
It wasn't complicated. It's not at all. It's loads of visual humour, loads of good slapstick, some funny, some witty laughs, some good performances, good support acts. Great fun. Take the family if you have to. 8 out of 10.
Does he still wear his duffel coat and wellies though?
Yes, he gets. Yeah, you see how he gets those. That hat is the explorer's hat, and the duffel coat was the Brown's family's dad, his coat when he was a kid.
Almost sounds like an origin story. This
it's kind of an origin. I'm sorry if I'm making it sound serious.
Paddington Begins.
I apologise. It's fun. It's fun and a really good watch. And the CGI is not
really complex. And
it's not. Yeah, I was just thinking of the story. I probably shouldn't have gone into such great depth.
Information of the bear work though, because
really good. Yeah, really good. The CGI was really good. It makes him look really, really cute without being over processed. Some problems when he's running and the movement looks a little bit unnatural, but that's always the case with CGI. But most of the time, it doesn't look like CGI. It looks like it's just a furry thing.
Mark, is a talking bear for a start. Does it matter how he moves?
Can I just ask, if he's a talking bear, why does he accept the name given to him?
Because his name is something like it's a bear noise, which humans find difficult to do. Although the daughter picks it up eventually.
Botright can do it after a couple of cans of K.
Yeah, but I won't tell you out of which orifice.
Mark, is Mr. Curry in it? Because he was in all the books. He was the sort of foil against.
That's right. Yes, it's Peter Capaldi.
Oh right. Is there much swearing at Paddington?
No, he was like Peter Capaldi, and he's got some sort of southern accent, and he's a bit creepy, but he's not particularly. No, they didn't really play on Capaldi enough, I don't think.
He probably had to phone it in between hooing.
Yeah, he wasn't in it a great deal. And there's Matt Lucas plays a kind of amusing cockney.
The only gay in the village.
Yeah. No, it would have been good though.
The only bear in this village.
And Julie Walters is in it, of course. And she's.
I believe she's contracted to appear in every humorous, light-hearted British film from now until such time as she dies.
I think that exactly. And after the furore, or relative furore, of Colin Firth pulling out and Hugh Bonneville stepping into his shoes, that didn't really make any difference. Hugh Bonneville
Colin Firth was going to do the voice of Paddington.
Oh, was he? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Ben Whishaw replaced him. What about the rating? Because they got a PG rating, didn't it? Because it was some scary stuff. Were your kids scared at all?
Yeah, it's scary. Not really. No. It's small amount of dark content, but nothing they might have seen before.
Marmalade sandwiches, though?
Lots. By the dozen. Major theme. They can make marmalade bears.
Can they?
These ones.
How?
Don't they eat honey?
Oranges.
Oh, I thought it was some kind of excretion or
No, they
something.
can use these bears. They're very advanced. They can use technology. They can build stuff.
Flying cars, everything.
Yeah.
Rise of the Planet of the Bears.
What got me though was when Paddy was on the station and he was there. It was this 3'6" bear who can talk and was trying to. No one paid him any notice, and he must have been there for about 12 hours before anyone spoke to him. I know
It is London.
place. Yeah, but come on.
Even and presumably, as before, even though he's from Peru, he doesn't have a strong South American Southern Spanish
No,
accent.
because they learned English off the English Explorer. So.
Oh right, of course. How foolish of me.
Silly boy.
They've thought of everything, haven't they?
See, this is more thought out than Terminator. I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, the Terminator plot, based upon that trailer, I get the impression that what's happened is they send Kyle Reese back in time, as in the first film.
Yeah, but
And when he gets to the first film,
they've already sent
it
a
turns
Terminator
out-
back.
Yeah, to when she was a kid,
Yeah.
and that Terminator for some reason is aging, even though it's a cyborg.
Yeah, but
so-
it's living on the outside though, isn't it? That was explained
Yeah,
in the
that's true,
first
yeah,
one,
so it
so
probably would
that,
age,
so
I
it
guess.
will age. So
No
Well,
more.
this is what they got that bit
explains
right.
why
He doesn't just go
Schwarzenegger-
mouldy.
It just rots.
Unless you keep him in the fridge.
I will say one thing though. I mean, look, there were some posters, sort of photographs of them in poses done for promotional purposes for Terminator Genesis or whatever it's called, and they looked absolutely appalling. There was even one with Matt Smith in it, the previous Doctor Who, and it just looked crap. And I remember looking at the pictures of Emilia Clarke? Who's obviously Daenerys in Game of Thrones. And she just looked weird, not with that white hair, basically. But I've got to say, in the trailer, she did actually look quite a bit like a young Linda Hamilton. So I guess that bit works. But
she looked too young though, I thought.
yeah, she'd look a bit too young, didn't she? I showed Laura the trailer, and the bit when they go, "We're going to end this war tonight," and she went, "Bet they don't." And then he said, "This time it's all different, and it looks pretty similar so far." So I think she had a point there.
Are you just trying to angle for her to take over your role in the What's at the Cinema thing at the podcast?
I think she'd be significantly funnier.
Well, he managed to rope in Mark this week, didn't he? So.
Yeah. You should keep your mouth shut, Mark.
Well, I only
So
go to
hang on,
cinema
but more
twice a year.
importantly,
I'm quite
Mark,
happy to
you
do it.
liked it. What do the kids think of it?
One loved it. One's just can't sit still. She'll like it at home. But, yeah, I told her I had to concentrate on it because I was doing it for the podcast. She didn't care.
Yeah, Daddy's got some homework.
I gave her a load of sweets.
Oh,
Sit
but
still, sugar rush.
that was the problem.
Yeah, well.
Sugar rush. Yeah.
It kept her quiet though. At least I could concentrate.
Okay, let's move on. Blu-ray's released next week, Steve.
Yeah, we got Sin City 2, A Dane to Kill For, which I have not seen yet, though I do have it on disc, but I haven't got around to watching it yet. Obviously, sequel to Sin City, which I think was 9 years ago now, so time really does fly. But that was a big, quite a minor hit and very well received. If anyone's seen Sin City, you know what it is. Basically, it's based upon the comics, the graphic novel by Frank Miller. Frank Miller and Robert Rodriguez directed it together, and it combines a very stylized comic book style, black and white graphics, splashes of color, with quite an interesting cast. And I think 9 years is far too long between the two films. I know from reading other people's reviews and comments from friends that have seen it, basically saying it feels like, even though it is made by Miller and Rodriguez, you feel like it's sort of been made by a bunch of people who had nothing to do with the original film. It just feels lazy and boring, and I think its moment has passed, and it didn't do very well at the box office. It was very badly received, and even though it's got an interesting cast. Although, having said that, if you are thinking of buying it, this might tip at the balance for you. Eva Green's naked for most of the film.
All
so
right.
that alone,
that's a purchase.
that alone, I think, is a good reason to buy it.
Yeah, but hang on a second. This is fairly old news, isn't it? I mean, what was that French student thing? The Dreamers?
Oh, yeah, no, I know Dreamers. Yeah. No,
She
she's
spent
naked in
the
all of them.
entire film with her clopper hanging out.
What's this?
So,
Which film's
Dreamers.
this?
The Dreamers.
Oh, that's
First
right.
film she
That's
made.
That's another one.
Best Lucy.
Amazon.com. Let's have a look.
It's a really good, actually a good movie, but yeah, she's got a kid off making that film too.
I think the thing with
good stuff.
Sin City 2, and it was the same with 300 as well. You know, for the time when both of those came out, they had a certain look which nobody'd done before, nobody'd seen it before. That added to the appeal to go and see these movies. It added to but then the sequels, and the same with 300, and it sounds like it's the same with this Sin City 2, is that they didn't move on anything any further
it's more
from where
the
it
same.
was. It was just more of the same.
Also, it's in 3D, and of course, given it's got this stylized black and white look to it, very comic book look, and it makes it basically look like it's cardboard cutouts a lot of the time. So I'm not sure that it really lent itself to 3D as a format, but I know Bob Rodriguez is really into 3D. But yeah, it hasn't done very well at box office. It isn't very well received. I have got it. I haven't got around to watching it yet, but now I remember the fact that Eva Green's naked, and I might watch it tonight. The other film coming out next week is Into the Storm, which I did see at the cinema with my parents actually, and I have to say, quite enjoyed. It's basically Twister, for the modern age. Lots of tornadoes, lots of action, lots of things being thrown around in the sky. One bit where a gigantic F5 tornado lifts up 747, which I'm pretty sure would be impossible, but there you go.
No, actually,
Oh yeah,
it
you reckon
does.
you can do it?
Oh, it does. I've seen video footage. That scrapyard, the plane scrapyard, they've got to tie them down because as soon as they take the engines off, if they get a certain wind, obviously
right.
a plane is designed to fly, so it wants to take off. So when the weight of the engines aren't on there and there's a certain wind, they will take off. So they've got to tie them down. So there you go.
Okay. Anyway, I think it'd be a good disc to buy because it'll look and sound amazing. The sound design, certainly in the cinema I saw it in, was really immersive and all around, and loads of bass, and it sounded great. So if you're into a good AV disc to buy, I think Into the Storm will certainly be one of them. I know Kaz is in the middle of reviewing it right now, so that review will be up soon, hopefully. I think he's doing Sin City 2 as well, so there should be 2 reviews coming. Those 2 reviews should be coming quite soon. But of those 2, I'd suggest, I haven't seen Sin City 2 yet, so this is based upon other people's comments, but I would probably go for Into the Storm, which I enjoyed. Found my parents enjoyed it too. Thought it was a good laugh, and I'm sure it'll look and sound great on your system.
Before we go, latest competitions, Universal Monsters box set. It's still running. It runs out on the 15th of December. Get yourself in for that. We've also got Eat, Sleep, Live AV stand. It runs out on the 5th of January. Go and check out that competition, as well as X-Air Spacers. What is the X-Air Spacers? I didn't actually look.
They're for spacing between your equipment to let airflow around them so they don't get hot.
Yeah,
All
if you
right,
aren't mad enough to buy a £1,500 rack to keep absolutely everything in, it allows you to put a bit of clear air between things. Will significantly improve the longevity and reliability of any amplifier or things like that. It's well worth doing.
Okay.
£4.50 a pack as well.
Can't argue with that.
You convinced me, Ed. They sound like a great idea.
So that runs out 20th of December, and of course the big one, the huge competition where actually, I can look at these competitions and I can see how many people have answered it correctly. It doesn't tell me who's answered it. It just gives you a percentage of correct answers, and this competition has the biggest percentage of wrong answers.
See, people deliberately getting it wrong.
They're deliberately getting it wrong. It has to be. Because everything else runs
tough question.
Everything else runs at about 87 to 100%. And this one it's about 60 or 60%.
It came across as a bit of a potential trick question, though.
You had to Google it if you'd not watched it, to be fair.
Yeah.
No, you just have to
I
read
mentioned
Steve's
it in
review
the review.
and the podcast.
And you have to read the review.
Oh, well, yeah,
then.
I would have to read the review, though. Steve.
Yeah, well, that's
Not
true.
done.
And then you'd have to listen to what Steve was saying on the podcast as well.
Yeah,
Which
there's only so much in one can take.
Just getting between us and the Rex.
So yes, actually, it's gone up. So some people have been answering it correctly. It's back up to 88%.
How many people have actually entered the competition?
61.
So 61. Mark reckoned there would be 44, didn't you?
I thought it was going to be Bob on 44.
Most of those are like alternate accounts for Whoopi Goldberg. Just trying to destroy all trace of it.
to keep up the as we go into the new year, 2015, we're obviously going to have a new feature on the podcast, which is the worst movie of the month that we're going to get people to seek out and go and watch. And I did give Steve a heads up on the next one. It does feature a T-Rex. It features Denise Richards and
Denise Richards, fair enough.
Paul Walker.
Not one of his finest hours.
More than that in the new year. And
is it Timeline?
No. No, it features a T-Rex. It's got a T-Rex.
Well, I don't know how badly they messed about with the book.
It's got a T-Rex. Anyway, Theodore Rex DVD competition closes the 15th of December. If you want it, then
come and get it.
Get yourself entered into that, and
we'll presumably announce the winner on the Christmas special podcast.
We will announce the victim on the 19th.
Is there not a box that you can tick for anonymity or something?
I don't know. I'm hoping we can announce the victim on the 19th. We'll give it a go. But anyway, that's the competitions that are running. And like I say, we've got another absolute We've got another absolute cracker for you in the new year, and it features a T-Rex, like I say. So go and do your homework, find out which one it is. And to finish off, my thanks go to Steve Withers.
What did you expect? An exploding pen?
Mark Hodgkinson.
Good luck out there in the field, and please return the equipment in one piece.
Mark Botwright.
The latest thing from my local toy store. It's called Radio.
And Ed Selly.
Well, you're bloody well not sleeping here.
Don't forget, you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Bookmark abforums.com for latest reviews, news and video. Plus, why not leave us a rating on iTunes if you enjoyed the show. And don't forget, next week, the 19th of December, is our Christmas Works Do, and you're all invited. So we'll see you then.